Alabama took care of business yesterday against Wisconsin, and Catfish was there. We're going to talk about that game and more right here on Sunday Rollback. Roll Tide, everybody. Always feels good to get together after a big Alabama win. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, and let's get Sunday Rollback started. All right, what do you say? There he is, Catfish himself, Mr. Chad Anderson. You also know him as the Mortgage Dad, and I'm Mick Gillispie at Broadcaster Mick. Mortgage Dad Chad. What's up, man? Roll Tide.
How are you, man? I'm beat to hell. I know that. I'm tired. I remember I had a streak, for those who don't know how obsessed I am with Alabama. Went to school there, grew up going to games, etc. I had a streak from the beginning of 99 through the end of 09 where I didn't miss a single game as far as a home game, and I only missed 5 games off campus. And I go back and think, like, man, Mick used to do it. We go out, we party, hit the weekends hard. Like, game day weekend started on Thursday, maybe even Wednesday,
Thursday night.
And I just remember, like, I would do it every single week, every week. And so yesterday, me and Nash, my oldest one, we literally flew up to Madison Friday night, landed at like 9:30, which, by the way, I got a story for you. I didn't have my ID. So going through the airport without an ID is awful. Yeah, that was brutal, man. So we get there, we go straight to the hotel, eat, go to bed, wake up 7 a.m., all day at the game. Fly home at 4 p.m. I'm back in Nashville I'm in my bed at 11:30, 11:45 last night. It's fantastic to be able to do that. It's also like, man, this getting old stuff sucks, dude. I just wake up and I'm like, I got hit by a truck, and I don't drink anymore. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't party. And I'm like, man, just 15 years ago, I was just going at it. Like, hard going at it. And it was a great win, a great trip. People are awesome. But these 24-hour business trips are tough on me, man.
Yeah, no. Well, you got to see Alabama take care of business at Wisconsin. First time that Alabama had played there since 1928. And they win the game easily, 42 to, what was it, 13 or something?
I don't even know, to be honest. I heard that they played in 28, but I didn't know anything.
15-0. It was 15-0 then. Oh no, I'm sorry, 42-10. Thank you.
Oh, yesterday.
Yesterday's game. It was 15-0 in 28. So Jalen Milroe with 5 touchdowns in the game. I know that he's got issues, and people want to talk about those issues, but one of those issues isn't figuring out a way to get into the end zone. And I mean, isn't that what the goal is here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for sure. And we're starting to get nitpicky on Milroe, but this is what's funny is I was watching the game, of course, and in the stadium and everything. There were 2 passes where I was just kind of frustrated, and you're like, man, those are just bad passes. Right. And those were the little, like, we talked about this all last year. It was the 10 to 15 yard shallow drag, the crossing route over the middle where the guy's wide open running one side to the other. And it's just that little touch, the little medium pass.
Right.
And he either throws too hard of a fastball or he tries to put touch on it and it just doesn't work out. Overshoots it or gets too much air under it or whatever the case may be. But then on the deep balls, like to Ryan Williams twice and Jeremy Bernard, Mick, those were dimes. Like right in the bucket. So I think, we're starting to get, if you're being that nitpicky on Jalen Milroe, that's a good problem to have. That means things are going well. So that, and we heard that DeBoer was going to use him a whole lot more as a wrinkle in the offense. And we saw a lot of QB power yesterday, tons of designed runs.
Loved it. Why didn't they do that last year?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't figure out why Tommy Rees wouldn't do that. I mean, what was the reason? You had him all year long. Anything he did with his legs, he basically had to create on his own. Now, you called it. He was hurt going into that Texas A&M game last year, and then there was about a month stretch where he wasn't the same speedy Jalen Milroe. Then you saw him against LSU, and he turned on the afterburners. So we saw glimpses of it, but this year we're seeing it full bore. It's part of the offensive playbook.
Yeah. Well, I think that DeBoer brings such a different element to the head coaching spot and obviously to the offensive side of the football, because I just don't think that, and I love Nick Saban. Look, I mean, Nick Saban's the best that's ever coached, but I don't know that he's able to take advantage of Ryan Williams like this. We've seen some great ones come through. I mean, to me, the standard is Julio, but Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Smitty. I mean, you can go through, right? There's been a lot of great receivers, but what this kid's doing, 4 touchdowns, 3 games, and he's 17 years old. It's unbelievable. And I don't think that if Saban was there, he'd even have had this many chances.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. The other thing too, if you go back in recent, you mentioned all those great receivers we had. If you go back and look in just the last couple of years, one thing we always talked about is there was no one who stood out in the receiver room. Bama didn't have the playmaker. Isaiah Bond kind of stepped up, but he still wasn't, the guy. We were hoping for Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law weren't really used. Remember Ja'Cory Brooks had the huge catch in the Iron Bowl. Then we never really heard from him again. I can't always remember how to pronounce his name, but Ajay Hall.
Ajay Hall, yeah.
Okay. Who always had issues off the field, and then it felt like was a problem in the locker room and with the coaches because he bounced around to 2 or 3 different teams and universities, and always had the same problem. Trayshawn Holden went to Oregon. He hasn't really done anything at Oregon, so
okay.
That's what I mean. Like he hasn't done anything more at Oregon than he could have done at Alabama, is my point. So it's not like Alabama has lost a receiver who went somewhere else and became this, oh my God, I can't believe
like Amari Cooper. We didn't have Kamara.
Right, exactly.
He goes to Tennessee and he's great.
Yeah.
Then he goes to the NFL. He's one of the best.
Yeah. Do you think is that the biggest miss ever for Alabama, or at least in the last 20 years?
I do think that. And I feel like that's where there's a couple things that Kalen DeBoer is doing differently that I really like. And there's going to be some stuff that he's going to do, probably a lot, that we're not going to like. I mean, it's just the way it is when you have the best ever. But we're seeing a lot more rotation. We saw Vandermark, we saw Formby on the offensive line rotate in. We saw Henderson made a really good catch in the game, right? We saw Odom. We saw a lot of those wide receivers that you would want to see. I think Saban was a little hesitant to dip down on the depth chart. He kind of got locked in with, hey, these are the guys that have been here, the guys that he trusted, and that's what made him so great. Whereas I feel like with DeBoer, because he's had to go places where he was depending on guys that were new, he's just used to doing that. And he's developing a lot of, first off, depth. But the other thing that he's developing is loyalty. Maybe you won't have 20 guys transfer out because they're getting a taste of playing and they know that there's a chance for them to play down the road. I think some of those players that left because they just didn't feel like Saban was going to give them a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Look at 2 other guys who transferred, and I hate it for them. And I know sports is an opportunity that's kind of the beauty of sports, is you mock people who don't do as well as you, right? Like that's the whole point of sports. You have winners and losers, and that's human nature and competitive and whatnot. Doesn't mean you wish bad on people, but you just kind of, sports really brings out the I told you so in us. And look at Malik Benson and Roydell Williams right now. They're sitting there transferred to an 0-3 Florida State team. And Malik Benson was supposed to be like this fantastic receiver. Now, there's one other one. It's Aaron Anderson, right, who's gone to LSU. And he has stood out and made some plays yesterday against South Carolina. I think he was involved in a couple of good plays against USC. I don't know how he did against Nichols, but that's another one where we kept getting all these reports and message board stuff, and it's, where are these guys every single week in practice? Like when Bill O'Brien was offensive coordinator and when Tommy Rees was offensive coordinator, like, where are these guys?
Yeah.
And they couldn't ever get to anything. They could never develop for whatever the reason. But I'm with you. Nick Sheridan's done a nice job. I do wonder, because we said this too. I forgot his name. Who was the offensive? Is bad. Foggy brain this morning. Who was the offensive coordinator that came with DeBoer and then went back to the Seahawks?
Oh yeah, Grubb. Yeah,
Grubb. Thank you. So we were all worried about that, but then we said, because it's what we do as fans, well, maybe it's Kalen DeBoer that has success, and Grubb is just kind of a compliment to it, but it's more
right.
DeBoer. Well, same thing with Nick Sheridan, right? Like the offense looks good twice so far this year, but how much of it is DeBoer? Is any of it Sheridan? Is it 80-20? But I tell you what, Alabama so far, it's 3 games. We can't overreact, but to bounce back from South Florida, to go on the road, not that Wisconsin was hostile by any means, but just to go on the road to a Power 4 campus and not just win, but literally dominate the game, that said a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 different styles too of football that Alabama's played so far, right? You had the Western Kentucky, then you had the South Florida, which is like what Tennessee's doing. You see, they won like 71-0 against Kent State yesterday, and then and I can't wait to see them in Oklahoma. I mean, you talk about a grudge match. That's going to be a game to watch next week, and we're off, so I can enjoy a game and not have to worry about what Alabama's got going on. Then the next week, everyone in college football is going to be staring at us to try to figure out, what this Alabama-Georgia game is going to be like. And the Kentucky game did nothing but make it tougher on us because they had those officials that were not going to let Georgia do anything except barely win to cover the spread, it felt like. But anyway, yeah, so Heupel going against his former school that he doesn't like. That'll be interesting. But anyway, we played South Florida. They had that same style of offense. And then, and then this was kind of more, I felt like it was more transition for Fickell. Like he's trying to get his guys in there. He's trying to change the culture. After the game, he's like, hey, if you didn't know what it felt like to get your ass whooped, there you go.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really genuine remark by him.
It was,
because that's what happened. But I think that Wisconsin's going to be better in the long run having him as head coach. Be interested to see what that looks like next year. But they didn't match up against Alabama in any area, and you feel like they can win this battle. And that's exactly how the game played out.
Yeah, they just don't have the dudes. And one thing Wisconsin is up against is, you look at all their head coaches that they've hired recently. Wisconsin is in a spot where they don't have any inclination that their identity is going to change. They just keep hiring the same types of guys, and that football doesn't really win anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who wins the game who wins national championships or conference championships by having 16 play 9-minute drives where you run the ball 12 times and your 4 passes are screens or dunks or stop routes or digs or curls, and there's nothing explosive about it. Like, those games don't happen anymore.
Right.
And to me, they have an identity crisis, and they keep hiring guys who played the same style. Now, I know Luke Fickell took Cincinnati to the playoff because Alabama beat Cincinnati in the 2021 semifinal. But he also had Desmond Ridder. He had a very talented quarterback who was doing all kinds of things with his legs, with his arm, etc. But I just think with Wisconsin that you've got a little bit of an identity crisis when you look at their head coaches. I mean, Brett Bielema, Paul Chryst, who is supposed to be an offensive genius and just never really panned out to anything. Luke Fickell, Gary Anderson, who I think it was Utah State. He left to go to Wisconsin and then, got fired and ended up back. So I don't know. They obviously have great running backs and a good tradition there, but they just don't have anything special. They're going to have to figure out something to keep up with the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Oregons, etc. Because Michigan and Georgia are about the only two who, could kind of play the bully ball and win the national title. Alabama could 13 years ago,
right?
But their last couple of titles, they didn't win it that way. But it's still unique. And even Michigan and Georgia, they still had explosive playmakers.
Right.
McConkey, Bowers. Michigan had Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. That's more the running back tandem. But I don't know. That's just what I noticed yesterday is they're going to struggle big time. They're going to become subpar Big Ten team if they don't figure out some identity.
Well, I mean, look, I'll say this. They've got to go other places to get ballers, man. I mean, they got to go into Chicago. They're going to have to go into Florida, Texas, California to be able to compete. Alabama and Georgia have a built-in advantage because we just develop a lot of players. There's just a lot of talent that you can, fill a roster with that's right in your own backyard. And I think that's where a school like Wisconsin, like look at Michigan. I mean, they have to go get players from all over the country, to have a championship team that, that they had last year. So
look at Alabama. Bama goes to Hawaii and California to get players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we don't have to. Look, Saban won championships with guys from Alabama. I mean, right now, we better watch out. One of the worries I have is that Auburn is starting to target the in-state guys, and you start losing Antonio Coleman, the Smith kid. You look at what the state has coming out next year, and a lot of those guys are committed to Auburn. You just don't want that if you're here. If it's Wisconsin, I mean, you could probably win a championship without having a lot of guys from the state. But that definitely worries me. With Alabama. Now, going back to the game, there's so many positives in the game, but when Van Dyke went down, I mean, for all intents and purposes, that game was over.
Yeah, the game was over with Van Dyke. But, I mean, when he goes out, then, obviously you can't play, 3 2/3 of the game or the quarters without your starting quarterback. And Van Dyke is nothing, that's elite or dangerous. He had a couple of plays on that first drive, but overall, he's still. If a Wisconsin fan will put it this way, if a Wisconsin fan is sitting out there talking about Van Dyke the way Texas fans talk about Colt McCoy, then they had a little something extra in their cheese curd because that's just not it. But yeah, they were behind the 8 ball from the beginning with a healthy roster.
Yeah. What did you think about Alabama's run game? And what are some of the things that stood out to you in the way that they played the game?
On the offensive side, the blocking schemes, they're just amazing. The way that they have it set up to where the holes are created and they pull and move and twist and do different things on the front to try to create some different lanes and zones for Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. I've been really impressed with that in the first 3 weeks of the year. It's incredible to see Caden Proctor back in. Remember, Mick, just a year ago, like literally a year to this day almost, we were wondering how quickly we could get Caden Proctor out of town. I mean, the guy was just getting beat and he was holding and he was doing all these things and it was terrible. And boy, that offensive line looked completely different with him healthy and everybody in their right position yesterday. So that was cool. I like how Alabama would mix it up, with the deep balls and the fades. Milroe has done a better job of a couple of times looking someone off and then coming back to them. Again, nitpicking, a couple of touch passes over the middle on the short to medium routes that could be a little bit better. Hopefully that develops over time. The deeper ball is good. But the other good thing with the running backs is you notice how well they catch out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Like they catch like receivers. I mean, Jam Miller did it against Georgia last year in the SEC title game. Had that pass for a touchdown on a wheel. Justice Haynes was a receiver on the first play of the game yesterday. He also caught another ball, and I'm not talking about screen passes. I mean, these are like 30-yard sideline passes, not 30-yard vertical, but 20, 30-yard side to side passes. So using them in that way, I wish we had seen a little more of K Law maybe yesterday. Didn't really see him much at all.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, it was good. The only thing I'd say on defense is I wish we had seen a little more pressure. But same time, I understand you didn't really need to because you weren't worried about their passing ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people feel like Alabama's been, not using much of the playbook right now because of this Georgia matchup. And I don't know. I mean, I that could be the case. I mean, that maybe that's a game plan for DeBoer. I mean, you're getting it done with, first off, having Milroe actually have design runs. And the crazy thing is, like, some of them are just, they stop him really soon. He tried to get outside a few times. It didn't work. But man, when he gets outside, he just blows past everybody. He's as good or better of a running back than Jam and Justice. We didn't see a lot of Justice yesterday, and I wonder if he's banged up. I mean, he only touched the ball.
We saw him early,
times.
And then that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't
so
seem like a whole lot more.
You never know. I mean, everyone's talking about Russaw, who was injured, kind of friendly fire, making a tackle. You wonder if he's going to be able to get back. That would definitely put Alabama's defense in a bad spot, just because, you got that wolf position. I mean, and all of a sudden it's like, you got a redshirt senior in Robinson that would be Russaw's kind of wolf replacement, but I hope that's not the case. And you have a couple of weeks to figure it out, right? And Malachi Moore had a concussion, so that you hope that in 2 weeks he's ready to go again. But it was one of those games where if you were questionable, it was just so, I never felt like they were going to beat Alabama. I never did. And I was surprised that I honestly felt like Alabama left a lot of opportunities out on the field in the first half, and then all of a sudden they started hitting. And I'm going to give you a comp for what this Alabama team reminds me of. For those older people, you remember when Bobby Bowden had Florida State rolling, and this team just reminds me of those Florida State teams, because it would be like slow, and then next thing you know, they score 3 or 4 touchdowns on you, and you're out. You're out. And this offense just reminds me of those Bobby Bowden teams in that aspect.
There were 2 key pieces of the game yesterday that I thought anyway. The first one was Wisconsin was up 3-0. Alabama had driven down the field, missed a field goal, and Wisconsin was coming back the other way. They had I want to say it was 3rd and 17. They got 16.9 yards. It was extremely close on the first down. I think the spot was correct, but it was really, really close. And then on 4th and inches, Deontay Lawson hit the hole perfectly and shut down the Wisconsin running game for a loss on the play and a turnover on downs. Wisconsin gets that first down, whether they go get another 3 or get 7. All of a sudden you're down 6 or 10-0. The crowd is more into it. It's a little bit of a crazier environment because now all of a sudden there's a 20% belief in everyone's brains, and who knows how things go. Alabama still wins the game, but it becomes a little bit more of a dogfight. So that to me was a morale killer early in the game for Wisconsin, was that tackle, that play on 4th and short. And then the next one for me was Alabama coming back right at the end of the half, Wisconsin missing a field goal, and then 2 plays, Milroe to Williams, Milroe to Jeremy Bernard, 2 perfect passes. And just in a flash, Mick, it went from 14-3 to potentially being 14-6 to being 21-3. like all within about, I want to say it was 3 minutes of live
Dude,
time.
that's what I'm talking about. That's the Florida State Bobby Bowden thing, man. I mean, you would sit there and watch those games and teams would be hanging in there with them. And then all of a sudden they'd just punch you in the mouth, like with 3 quick touchdowns and you're out of it. The defenses for those Bowden teams were good. They weren't always great, but they were good. But the offenses were always just come at you. They'd beat you with the deep ball. They'd run and pick. And then, they'd put you away so fast. And that's what I mean. Like, it just feels like this team. And I worry about I worry about this offense a little bit because they sometimes they just get out of kilter. But the explosiveness is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, no, it is. Man, you bring up, like, I get flashbacks. I think of Mickey Andrews on the sidelines.
Yeah.
I think of Peter Warwick, for Florida State. Those were some great Florida State teams,
Brooks.
man.
Brooks.
That Florida State team, or that little, you had, what was it, Florida State, Nebraska, basically in the 90s, just kind of constantly going at each other with Miami sprinkled in. Those are some fun years.
Guys, let me tell you this. I want to throw this up on the screen for you and switch it with Catfish there. That's where I'm at right now. Wilderness at the Smokies. I want to tell you that, I did the show yesterday from the rooftop bar, and we're recording this right now from my room, but that's my view from my room right now. Wilderness at the Smokies is in Sevierville, Tennessee. They did a $40 million expansion, and it's definitely worth checking out. It includes a lazy river. They've got the biggest water park in the Smokies, it's really amazing because it's a water park, and then inside the hotel down there is an inside water park. They also have Lookout Lagoon. That's where I was yesterday with the rooftop pool with the glass edge. I mean, you can just sit up there and just drink a beer and look out at the Smokies. It's called Peak Rooftop Bar and Eatery. It's pretty fun. That's where I've done a lot of shows, and I'm going to be up here for a few more days. So just throw that out there. Just a relaxing view of the mountains.
Dude, that's awesome.
Does that make you relax right there, Chad?
It does. I mean, I kind of want to grab this and just put it as a screensaver on my television at home. I get my cup of coffee, and sit in the living room and just think about the Smokies. That's gorgeous, man.
Yeah. I'm up here for work, but we'll definitely have some fun while we're here as well. So, you mentioned the big 4th down stop. I thought that was, besides Van Dyke leaving, one of the biggest plays in the game. We talked about Ryan Williams and what he's been able to do, him scoring another touchdown. That was a big play in the game. The defense forcing fumbles. That defense was just, they started getting locked in and mean. One of the problems that I thought Alabama really had, with Nick Saban's defense a couple years ago, it was good, but they just didn't get enough turnovers. These guys this year have been opportunistic with the turnovers, and there were a couple that they jarred the ball loose. We're going to get into LT Overton because he was a beast in the game, but the turnovers in these early season contests, I guess game 2 they didn't have any, but the first one and the one at Wisconsin, game changers.
Yeah, Sab had 2 picks in the first game, and then yesterday, how about Malachi Moore's hit in the open field to cause that first fumble? That was beautiful. Textbook. He got low and just blew the guy up, set Alabama up on a short field. That was such an amazing defensive play by Malachi. So terrific job there. Was it the 2016 team, I think, Mick, that had all the knots, the non-offensive touchdowns? Over and over. So I was talking to a couple of fans yesterday, just in the stadium or outside or whatever, walking around, and people were excited. It was like the defense had an edge to them again.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw when Kirby Smart was the defensive coordinator. It's what you saw when Jeremy Pruitt was the defensive coordinator. And then our guy Pete Golding came along. And we didn't Pete looked like Pete looked like the hungover guy who took his frat picture for the media guide. That was Pete. And it got a little soft with Pete. All right. Pete was soft. Kevin Steele comes in last year. It was better, but it wasn't, it started to trend back that way. But I don't know. Kane Womack in the first 3 games, there's just something a little different. I also love his press conferences because he gets up there and talks about, like, I don't enjoy being a bend, don't break defense. Like, he hates that. He hates being called that. He's talking about, like, the standards and the attitude and the intensity and all those things. And that's what I really liked yesterday too, is Wisconsin, they also got lucky a lot on offense. And when I say that, I mean, there were 3 tipped passes that ended up getting caught by Wisconsin. 3.
Yeah.
And then the touchdown they caught on 4th and goal around the 3-yard line.
Yeah, not a great play.
That it was just an insane play. Like, there was no way to defend it. It was a rifle shot, low and away. The receiver just made an unbelievable catch. There was nothing you could do about it defensively. So I just go back and look, I'm like, man, that defense played well. They also could have had probably 2 interceptions in that game.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I like how they're flying around the ball. I like
the fumbles too, buddy. I mean, like, they strip the ball and then it bounced right into their guy's hand. On another day, you scoop it and go the other way for 6.
Yeah, hit the quarterback once or twice, causing a fumble, and then did get 2 of the fumbles, one in the open field and then one kind of, in the fray there in the middle in the trenches. But yeah, Alabama, the defense, really impressive so far. I mean, 23 points. I know the opponent's not even one of them is ranked at the moment, but 23 points over 3 games. I don't care who you're playing in today's age of football, where teams are scoring, especially South Florida and the way they run tempo, and Western Kentucky and the way they put up points, and they'll do it throughout the year. Then Alabama holding 3 teams to 23 points. That's an impressive start. And we'll see. They get the week off. Conference play begins. But so far, you could not have asked for a better start. Alabama is exactly where everyone hoped they would be going into the Georgia game in 2 weeks.
Yeah, look, the other play that I thought was worth talking about was one that if you got up early before the half ended, you might have missed it. Like if you tried to sneak into the concessions or to hit the bathroom before everyone else, and you were there at Camp Randall, you might have been like, oh, we got another touchdown. But we got the ball right at the end of the first half, and instead of taking a knee, we just went straight down the field and scored on those guys. I mean, and I thought that was the play that kind of put them out. Bernard caught the pass in the end zone. He's getting better and better. It's becoming Williams and Bernard. I'm not sure why Kendrick Law isn't doing anything. But he was
around in game 1, but he wasn't in games 2 or 3.
And he may be, who knows? Maybe he's banged up or something. But Bernard's getting better and better. He's kind of that sneaky, kind of that dude that you forget about him, and then all of a sudden you need a big play and he's making it. But he caught that touchdown, and that was where it was like, yeah, Wisconsin's not coming back. They just, and that was another thing that reminded me of Florida State too. They used to do that. They're pushing the ball down the field. It's just a different style at Alabama now, where they're being way more aggressive and they're playing a lot more loose. And also the road environment didn't seem to bother them at all either. I loved watching the guys jump around and and just have fun. Like, it's okay to have fun. It's fun to win.
Yeah. That's why I was saying, you go back and look at that final 1 minute of game time. It was about 5-6 minutes of real time to end the first half. It went from being a 14-3 game, Wisconsin trying a field goal, to Alabama going up 21-3 at the half, because it goes, that's literally 14-6. Does Alabama get a touchdown if Wisconsin kicks off and does the more formal approach to a possession? Maybe not. Maybe they get a field goal. Maybe they get nothing. But good chance it goes 14-6 at half. It's a 1-possession game. Alabama gets the ball third quarter. But yeah, missed field goal, and then boom, boom, just explosive right down the field. That's what Alabama can do with DeBoer and with Milroe and some of these weapons. It's exciting to see. It's fun to watch.
Yep, I'm definitely with you there. Guys, the show's brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. If you're a guy like Catfish and he loves to get out there and play he likes the table games and slots. I've seen him at the roulette wheel before. Him and, of course, his dad, OG Cat. But they have a good time at the casino, and we want to invite you to Pearl River Resort, where you got Silver Star and Golden Moon. Now, Chad, there's actually a sports book there called Timeout Sports Lounge, so you don't have to go all the way out to Vegas to enjoy the experience of being there at the sports book. You can gamble in Alabama or really anything. They've got a bunch of amenities, including 20 big screen TVs with all the games from around the world now, not just in the country, but all the major sports around the world. You can bet on those. They've got the window if you need a little bit of help. They've got kiosks if you want to do it yourself. They've even got some kiosks that have games. You can just put what game you're doing while you're sitting in there hanging out, if you just like your own little private area. And if you spend $50 at the sports book, you can play Dancing Rabbit, which is the Augusta that you can play. You don't need a membership for just $40. And you get to go over there. It's a wonderful golf course. The clubhouse is fantastic. It's really a great experience. So find out for yourself at Pearl River Resort, and we appreciate those guys so much for being a part of what we do here. All right, look, Georgia. I thought the officiating in the Georgia game wasn't great. I've seen Alabama deal with that in the past. It turned into a dogfight. Kentucky, of course, they weren't going to win, but they lost by 1 point. So it was a moral victory. And now Georgia's going to be very focused to play Alabama. It's like, to me, it's not a good formula. When you get that loss, but you feel like you get the win, but you feel like you lost. We had that last week. We came in so focused. Then when you come in and you just easily beat your opponent on the road, and now you got Georgia coming to town. Now, with that said, it's not like you're looking past this. When in 2 weeks, it's going to be the biggest game in college football this season.
Yeah. I mean, College Game Day is going to be there. Nick Saban is going to be back on campus as a ESPN employee. It's just going to be nuts. It's going to be prime time. That I don't think enough people have talked about this. Do you realize, Mick, like when the SEC had the contract with CBS, the problem was this game would be 2:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
Now, this game is 6:30 under the lights, ABC, game day's there. Fowler and Herb Street are calling the game. Like, it's going to be the epicenter. It's everything. Remember, CBS used to have to ask ESPN, hey, let us have the primetime slot once or twice a year so that they could put Bama and LSU in these positions. Same kind of thing. That's what's going to be great. And like you said it perfectly. Honestly, I kind of wish the roles were reversed. I wish Alabama had escaped Wisconsin and Georgia had beaten Kentucky 51-7 or something. But I think you can throw all that out. I don't think either team's going to be overlooking or using a previous game as an indicator of how they're going to play in the next game. So I really think that both teams getting 2 weeks fully prepared, the whole deal, it's going to be something. I would say too, we're going to be in a spot where how often is Kalen DeBoer going to talk to Nick Saban over the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, right.
Because
I think
no matter how good Georgia was, no matter how good Alabama was, Nick Saban had Georgia's number.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't lose. He lost to Georgia twice in 17 years. I think he was like 6-2 or 7-2 against them. He always would beat them. I know injuries are part of the game, but you can't tell me that Alabama wouldn't have won another national title had Mechie and Jamison Williams not been hurt against Georgia and Indianapolis. So I'm curious. DeBoer and Saban have said they haven't really talked a ton, but I would imagine Nick Saban's going to be helping a lot in some of the schemes or game plan or pointers, etc.
All right, Chad, we get towards the end of Sunday rollback. It's time for our game balls. I'll go first just because I did this already yesterday, and I'm going to start on offense. And I gave my game ball to Jalen Milroe. Look, I know that there's some criticism for Jalen Milroe, and I get it. I mean, we all see that he has some things that he's still working on, and that includes the short and intermediate passing and sometimes reading blitzes. Now, with that said, I slot him right there with Jalen Hurts as far as Alabama quarterbacks, except I think that at this point in his career, he's better than Hurts was when he was at Alabama. Also love the fact that this guy knows how to win, and he's won a ton of games, and he's getting more confident each week, and he knows what he's doing. And now you got an offensive coordinator that's not afraid to let him run and then setting up the RPOs and some just straight up runs. And he, he'll get tackled 3 times and then he'll bust one off for 40. You have to factor that in with the deep ball and the fact that he's gone out, like Jay Coker said on Elephant in the Room on our Cover Crimson show. You have to also remember this guy's provided leadership when guys were jumping off and leaving Alabama. He stuck. He kept the offense together. He went out and raised money for the university and the NIL. We met him at the floor Bama. He is the undisputed leader of this football team. The guy scored 5 touchdowns yesterday. And I get it. Look, what this is all about opinions. I mean, you can get on here and not like him. And some of you guys get on to me like, I can't believe that. 5 touchdowns. He's on pace to score more than Tim Tebow. Clint Lamb was telling me yesterday on the postgame show. Think about that. More than Cam Newton running. So give the guy a lot of credit. He's easily my choice for offensive MVP. Catfish?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you don't because it's too good. There was also another stat. Was it the 5th quarterback ever to have, is it 3 straight games where you have 2 touchdowns passing and 2 touchdowns running?
Yeah. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah. 3 straight games, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground, 5th quarterback ever to do it. And it was Tebow was up there. Manziel was up there. Jordan Lynch from Northern Illinois. And there was one other, maybe it was Cam. I can't remember, but there was one other quarterback in that list. And it really is amazing, like what he's been doing and what he's been able to contribute to the offense. And he is fast. He's got a cannon for an arm. It's great that we're to the point now where we're trying to, find problems with his game. And those, you go back to last year, remember we're watching Alabama play Texas. People can't wait for Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner to get into the game and to make a switch. And now here we are, and Milroe is setting himself in a perfect spot in this offense. What's crazy too, Mick, though, if you look at his numbers, there was nothing like insane about it. He had 5 touchdowns. That's insane. But he had only 12 of 17 through the air. And he carried the ball. He was the leading rusher. He had 14 carries for 75 yards. So he's doing it with his legs and his arm. But if you go, 12 of 17 for 196, that's not a lot. That's nothing crazy. We see guys put up 400 and 500 yards in the air. But he's doing that and then also running it 14 times. So terrific job by him. 5 touchdowns. He definitely gets a game ball.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you don't have to agree with me every time.
I know, but that one's too obvious. I can't help it. Yeah.
But I just felt like, 5 touchdowns, man. Like the object of the game is to get the ball in the end zone. I don't care how you do it. Right. Just do it, man. And he's got this killer instinct where it's like, hey, you know what? He may be thinking to himself about the Heisman because I know he wants to win that. And you keep doing what you're doing. This Georgia game, you play like that against Georgia, and you know what?
That'll do it.
You'll be right at the top of that list because
it won't do it. But it's the Georgia game is his chance to put himself like firmly in the discussion as a consistent, Heisman projection finalist. But you don't win it in September, but you certainly put your name in the hat in September.
Yeah. I don't remember Cam Newton's like deficiencies or inefficiencies, but obviously Milroe has that same skill set, right? Where he can throw deep, he can run. He's a great athlete. And I just wonder, like, because I didn't watch Auburn a lot that year. I just watched them when they beat us, which sucked. But I just wonder, like, is all of this stuff, like the mid-range passing, maybe being a little bit more crisp on that, is that something that he'll be able to develop? Because he's not Bryce Young, but nobody's Bryce Young.
Yeah. I mean,
period.
It's just more reps and more work, right? Being more comfortable. So I also think the more you do the QB power and the more he does scramble and get out and cause problems, I think it just opens up to where those medium range passes are even more wide open, right? And he also had more time yesterday. He wasn't being pressured like crazy.
Great point.
So I think as the offensive line gels more and continues to improve, which it was great yesterday, but it's only going to get better. So as they continue to develop as a unit, it's going to give him more confidence. So it's a throw he can make. It's just confidence and actually completing a couple and then being able to build on that.
All right, defense. I said yesterday, LT Overton, easy defensive choice for me in the game. He just seemed to be very disruptive, but there were a lot of really good players. So you go. Tell me what you think.
I mean, on the defensive side, Jahad Campbell actually led the team with tackles
again,
and assists combined. Malachi Moore could get it because of his fumble that he caused in the first half, which was a big thing for Alabama. But I'm actually going to go Deontay Lawson. I think that fourth down stop that he basically made a solo tackle on was a pivotal point of the first half. He also had 4 tackles, which is right there with Campbell. He had 3 assists. But I think the fourth down stop in the middle of the field like that on Wisconsin being in plus territory, I think it was just such a momentum swing for Alabama. Plenty of people deserve it. Campbell, Malachi, Sab played well in the secondary, but I'm going to go Deontay Lawson for his stats and then that one big crucial play.
Yep. I agree. Good stuff there. All right. And finally, special teams. I had Burnham. There was one punt in the game where I'm on a group chat with Ryan Anderson and Jay Coker, and I'm just like, I just wrote that punt. He totally flipped field position in the game. When you don't have a punter, you realize how important it is. Alabama had J.K. Scott, he was a great punter, still punting. And Burnham this year kind of reminds me of Scott, man. He is just Mr. Reliable. And not only does he punt the crap out of the ball, he gets it high too. I mean, it's far and high.
Yeah. J.K. Scott was the best punter I've ever seen in Alabama history. Burnham is going to challenge him for that. I agree. The punts yesterday were seeing them in person and just how high they are and how deep they are. And he had Wisconsin fans pissed off, man. Like he did because the return guy didn't know what to do. And he fair caught one on the 5-yard line. Wisconsin fans were losing their mind.
I remember that. Yeah.
There were a couple of situations, but yeah, he flipped the field. And especially when you're playing teams like Wisconsin, who the only way they usually score is if you start to give them a shorter field.
Yeah.
Because they're not explosive. So for them to go 85, 90, 95 yards, really difficult. So Burnham gets it for me as well. His punts yesterday were great.
All right. I thought the offensive line was the unit of the game. Those guys stepped up. They're a difference maker. And at the end of the day, if this team's going to do anything, it's going to come down to the offensive line, which from the very beginning, we thought, at least I thought, was going to be the strength of the team. They were the strength of the team against Wisconsin, but they're going to have their toughest test in 2 weeks, Tuscaloosa, against the Georgia Bulldogs. A couple things before I throw it back to you, Chad. Let me put this back up here again. Just one more look at the scenic Smokies. And I want to, again, thank everyone at Wilderness at the Smokies for making my stay very comfortable. Look at the mountains out there. You guys check it out if next time you're coming to Sevierville. But they just did a $40 million expansion. We talked about that before. And you're kind of right at the base. So the best part about it is you can go in and do your stuff. You got all the water parks and stuff inside for the kids, inside and outside. And then, stuff like Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. But then when you want to get out of town, you're not hitting the all the lights of Pigeon Forge, and you're not so far off the beaten path. But it's really a great place, and I appreciate them. Also, as I mentioned before, we're brought to you by the great people at Pearl River Resort. So thank you to them. And I'm taking Bama basketball, Chad. I feel like this Bama basketball team might be a good bet for the national championship. All right, final thing, though, is anytime Chad comes on, I want to make sure that he promotes what he's doing. And I know that some of you guys have actually teamed up with him for help with your mortgage.
Yeah, we've helped a few people on this channel. So appreciate those of you who have reached out, and we were able to help and improve your situation. Website there is chadwickanderson.com. That's my personal cell phone, personal email. I answer that. No one else does. The feds are cutting rates on Wednesday, but let me just go ahead and tell you, mortgage rates have already started coming down. We're into the 5s. I even got somebody below 5 the other day. We're out of the 6s, is assuming your credit is in a good position and whatnot. But we've seen a lot of people who have been able to refinance, save a bunch of money, or take cash out, pay off a bunch of bills. We saved one person, Mick, or one family rather, the other day. We saved them $800 per month. And they bought their house a little over a year ago, and their home has already appreciated in value. Their rate has already come down. We're saving them $800 a month. So that's just one of the stories. There's countless number of them. Don't believe everything you read on social media. Just reach out to me. I'll answer your questions, tell you what's going on. We'll figure out if it's the right time or not. But chadwickanderson.com, chad@chadwickanderson.com, my cell phone there as well.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Chad, let's do it again next week. I guess we won't have as much to roll back next week with an off week, but we'll be starting to talk about Georgia and Alabama. But thanks, guys. Roll Tide, and we will talk to you again really soon right here, including tomorrow with Big Sexy Elmo. He'll be on. So roll Tide, everybody.